I'm a really big believer in taking the hard route and doing things the right way. That starts with the people. It's not just what you accomplished, it's how you behaved when you accomplished those things.
Welcome to Decision Points, and our guest, Calvin Carter, the CEO of Matic and co-founder of Dallas Opportunity Partners. Welcome to Decision Points, Calvin.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We're looking forward to learning about your rich history today. Why don't you begin by telling us where you're from? And
Originally?
Yes.
Originally Tampa, Florida.
After Tampa, was there...
So I got to Dallas. I'm in Dallas right now. How I got to Dallas was I went to SMU. And the plan was to actually go back to Tampa, and I just never left.
So Dallas has been home since
I was, I guess, 18, and I'm 55 now.
Oh, wow. Well, welcome. And we're glad to have you. We're glad you're here. You are a person that we very much look forward to speaking with, because I think there are many people in the world that can see a long way, but you are somebody that upon examination looks like you can see around corners a little bit. So we want to get a little bit of feel for how you see things.
Sure.
And I don't want to gloss over anything, but kind of take us from SMU, just in a kind of a bullet point, the high points of your career to now.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to go back a little bit further, but just briefly, because it does make a little sense. So when I was 9 years old, and I'm the son of two entrepreneurs. Both my mom and my dad were entrepreneurs, so I grew up around, the kitchen table, thinking that discussions around making payroll and cash flow and investors and customers and whatnot, I figured that was just normal in every family. And another pivotal thing that happened to me when I was a kid, again, 9 years old, I touched my first computer. I was at, my parents were both in YPO, and I was at one of the family, conferences, and they had all the junk for kids to go do, and I wanted to go to the business conferences and whatnot, and so they let me go. I cried enough for my mom to, guilt her and let me go, and so I touched my first computer. It was an Apple IIe, and it was a class where they were teaching people about my age now how to bring personal computers into the workplace for spreadsheets and things like that, word processing, et cetera. And so by the end of the class, I was the teacher's assistant. It was just like I put my hands on that thing and it just felt right. It got me, I got it. And so I was really lucky at a super young age to find my real passion. And that's just a gift to find it that young. So then that translated into, when I got to SMU, it was, the funny thing is I've never taken a computer science course or a programming course, but that's all I did as a hobby. I guess I didn't feel like I needed the university's probably 5 years out of date version of what I was already doing at night. So at SMU, it was all about computers. And so I had all these little odd jobs. I had started my first little business with my roommate. We were doing computer consultancy. We ran all the computers on campus. I was writing a point of sale system for a local company, just stuff like that, just odd jobs for beer money. And then that, I only had one real job in my life where someone else employed me, and that was Price Waterhouse, before it was Price Waterhouse Coopers. And it wasn't on the accounting side, even though I got my degree in accounting. Why did I get my degree in accounting? My dad sat me down and said, P&Ls, income statements, cash flow statements, that is the language of business. If you don't understand the numbers, you're not going to be able to run a business one day. Someone else will always have to run it for you, and there's always a potential problem when that happens. And so know the native language of business, which is dollars and numbers. So that's why I got my accounting degree. But I went to work at Price Waterhouse as essentially a programmer with a tie, because they made you wear ties at Price Waterhouse. And I lasted about a year or so. And it was part of this seeing around corners, as you described it, because I've always been centered in the future. And that's not a good or bad thing. That's just how I came out.
Sure.
I've always been centered in the future, which means I forget things easily that happened in the past. So I'm a great person to have as a friend in case you or late or whatever, I'll forget it, that kind of thing. But I also have a hard problem celebrating in the present. It's hard for me to be in the present. I'm always thinking about the future. So with Price Waterhouse, I almost got fired because I was adamant that handheld computing was the future. And admittedly, I was with a little bit early. And I got into essentially to a public fight with a partner of Price Waterhouse. I'm like the lowest guy on the totem pole. He's the highest guy on the totem pole. I didn't know he was a partner. I get into this kind of online public debate about it. Almost got fired, and so I've always been really focused on that. And then that reminded me that Price Waterhouse is a great place to work, but it's a great place for someone else to work. I need to have that ability to pursue those ideas I have about that is pulling me into the future. And so after leaving that, I started a business with that roommate, Icon Interactive. Started as a desktop publishing, desktop multimedia. This is when desktop video was first coming out. CD-ROMs were all the rage. And pivoted that very quickly to a company that built websites. In the 97, 98, pretty much everyone in the world woke up and said they needed a website, 99 for sure. And we had the great opportunity to build the very first Dallas Stars website, the very first Texas Rangers website. We were the first ones to sell tickets to a baseball game online.
Really?
You see, you just going back to the early days,
Sure.
Stuff that we take for absolute granted right now. Me and, the great people that I work with have the opportunity to innovate and invent that stuff. With Dallas Stars, I remember their big problem was when you bought a ticket to the Dallas Stars, you'd have to call the 1-800 number. That's how you bought tickets.
Right.
You call the 1-800 number, or you went to the box office. And so one of the biggest selling objections was you want to buy a ticket, but you're worried about what the view is going to be. And so there's an enormous amount of friction in that sales process. Well, for $10 more, you can sit, in this area. Well, is it better? Oh, yes, it's better. Well, is it near a pole? Well, I don't know, sir. I don't know if it's near a pole or not. So there was a lot of fall off. So again, another theme in my life is there is friction or pain in the marketplace. There is technology that can solve that if you can think creatively. And so what did we do? We went to, at the time they played over Union Arena, we went and we sat in every other chair and took a photograph. Wrote a program that would, when you clicked on a seat, it would grab the closest photograph from the database. It would show you the ice. So right there online, even if you're on a 1-800 number, the salesperson would say, hey, you got a computer? Sure, go to this website. What's the website? Good, just go here. Okay, great. Click on this button, click on that button. That's your view. Oh, I'll take it. Well, hold on a second. Click, click, click. No. I want the $170. No, I want the... So it became a massive business success for them because they upsold the crap
Absolutely.
out of everything because they took away that friction in the system. And so a lot of what I've done in my life is take friction away using technology in a creative way. And that's what I did at Bottle Rocket. We started Bottle Rocket in 2008. That's an app development business. If you've ever ordered anything from Chick-fil-A, that's our work. If you've gotten on a Southwest Airlines flight, that's our work. If you've ordered a pizza from Pizza Hut, that's our work.
Yes.
And then there's tons of others, like 550 major brands. We had the wonderful pleasure to build their entire mobile business strategy, go-to-market, obviously the app itself, and then care for that. Grew that business pretty well, and then sold that business to WPP, which is kind of like Omnicom or Publicis, but they're out of London and bigger than the other two combined. And then the Matic story started, which I'll stop there in case you have specifics about the Matic story.
I was going to go back just a little bit. So you hit on some things about the friction and being able to see the technology and how it can sort of ease that friction. Now, you just sound like you're describing my 5 basic food groups with Pizza Hut and Chick-fil-A, all the things. I mean, that's what I said. That's what I order. I use your product, I'm sure, millions of times. But I think that it seems simple now because even somebody like me can access it and use it. But talk about some of the challenges that you might have seen when you could see it, but then you were taking it to, say, Pizza Hut or to the Stars and saying, what if we did this? Well, this is what it looks like. Obviously now they can see the benefit of getting the upsale by the tickets, but on the pre side, when you were saying, I've got this deal that you could do, how do they play into that resistance?
Well, we'll say that one of the hardest things to do in life is to make something easy. It's really easy to make things complicated. It's really hard to make things easy. So there is an enormous amount of art and craft and just sweat and blood, sweat, and tears, involved in making a thing that is easy to use. But your question is really about how do you get them to see along with you?
Yeah.
If I can see something, but I can't convince you or I can't help you see it as well, why would you possibly, go forth with me? Well, a lot of times, what I've learned is that, the power of polarity, which is if you can't, and probably a more accessible way would be like, you can't be all things to all people, something like this,
right? Some
quote like that. And so there's a lot of companies that we could have worked with, but they couldn't see it. They just couldn't see it. Companies that we have worked with, they had that same polarity that we did. And so we would come out, let's just take Bottle Rocket, because when Bottle Rocket started, it was before the App Store came out, and it was before any company had an app. And so...
Well, and I don't mean to interrupt, but correct me if I'm wrong, but you are leading the race at that time, so much so that Bottle Rocket started the day after Apple allowed third parties to develop?
The day after they announced that they were going to allow, yes. So, I think it was March 6, 2008. Steve Jobs, who's still alive at the time, was giving one of his many famous keynotes. And in this particular keynote, he held up the iPhone, which was a completely locked down. It wasn't a walled garden. It was a walled garden inside of a safe, inside of a tomb, inside of a pyramid, underground by 10,000 feet. So there's nothing you could do with it other than buy it and use the apps that were already on it, like the calendar app, the email app, the text messages app, things like that. He announced he's going to open this platform to third-party developers. And I literally the next morning called my attorney and I said, start an LLC. I'm going to figure out a name. What's it going to do? And I'm like, it's going to make apps. What are apps? I'll let you know when I figure it out. I just knew that was going to be big. I'm not here to tell you that I had the ability to see like Steve did, but what Steve laid down, I picked up. And I knew it was going to be big. I couldn't tell you then that it was going to be an entire economy. There's an app economy out there, and we can talk about what a massive percentage of revenue of a lot of companies are driven through mobile now. But the idea of what it could become was what excited me. 3 months later, the App Store did launch. You were able to, shortly after the announcement, you were able to download what was called the iPhone SDK software development kit, which allowed you to start building apps. I actually went on Craigslist and I looked for because I couldn't afford anything else. I went to Craigslist to put up ads for app developers, but you couldn't put an ad out for an app developer because there was no such title as an app developer. So I would say things like, hey, has anyone else downloaded the iPhone SDK? Is anyone else interested in working on a project together? Things like that. It was that like grassroots at that time. And I spent the vast majority of my time sitting at Starbucks with graph paper and pencils. This is not BS. This is true. Sketching app ideas. And when I mean an app idea, I don't mean like one or two pictures, but let's say an average app would have maybe 100 screens, that I would hand draw.
Right.
And I would literally hand draw them. I didn't use any wireframing software, PowerPoint, nothing, just like hand drawn. And I remember I designed 33 of them. So that means 3,300, screens I drew in a period of about 3 or 4 months. And I did that because I was trying to come up with ideas. I was trying to figure out what would people want to do with their iPhone, if they could do anything with their iPhone. And I came up with some game ideas. I came up with some productivity tools, some business tools, all sorts of things like that. And but I'm sorry, I'm kind of going into the Bottle Rocket story now. Do you want me to pull back or just keep going?
Please do.
All right, so the Bottle Rocket story continues. So we we launched 8 apps, and one after the other. All are on our own account, meaning we just built them for ourselves and launched them, not for a customer,
right,
just for ourselves. And apps 1 through 7, all successful in terms of people loved them, absolute financial failures. It's really hard to make money 99 cents at a time. And that's really what the market was. It kind of surprises me that it became what it became today, because, wow, it could have really collapsed right then. But the 8th app made at least enough money for me to not go bankrupt and pay a few bills and last another day. And shortly after that, that's when I realized that all those 3,300 screens that I drew and those 8 apps I put out on the App Store were going to pay off in a form that I did not originally intend. And that is that I had an opportunity to strike up a relationship with Apple. I think they appreciated the fact that I was pushing high-quality experiences out on their App Store. Good for them, good for me. And I had the opportunity now to pitch large organizations for their work. And so the first one was NPR. So National Public Radio had me and about 11 other people on a list to talk to about building their first app. And I was a little different because when I got off the phone with them, because I have that muscle of drawing, that evening, I drew the entire NPR app workflow, probably 100 screens, emailed it to them the next morning, and I said, these are my ideas. I've identified a few areas that radio in general has friction. What's the biggest friction radio has? 1, almost all of them only existed in cars at the time. And 2, you have to listen to what's on, right?
Right.
There's no dynamic access to content. And so I took those 2 things out of the equation. I put the radio in your pocket, your iPhone, and I decimated the programming so that you could listen to anything at any time or re-listen to it, et cetera, et cetera. So it's almost like having like today's ability to watch video on demand. Imagine that a long time ago.
Yes.
Imagine that in 2008.
So if you're able to make your favorite host show,
yeah,
you're able to do it this
sure.
way.
Or you could say, you know what, I'm going to go on a 45-minute run, and I like technology and entertainment. And it's gonna put story after story, clip after clip of your own radio show that you've curated because you've identified what you want, and all of a sudden it is now reading you articles and things like that. It's so really worked out great. So that is really what launched Bottle Rocket. The other smart thing I did was on the launch screen, the screen that you see when you first launch the NPR app, I put a little tiny bit of magic at the bottom that turned out to be the difference between night and day in the success of Bottle Rocket. Designed and developed by Bottle Rocket. It was right down there. And the good people at NPR let that stay. So every single time someone launched that app, and it was tens of millions of people, sure, they would see designed and developed by Bottle Rocket, and it was a damn good app. And immediately, the kinds of people that would be listening to that app in general include lots of CEOs and CFOs and CMOs across the nation. So when they reached for their favorite app in the morning to get the news, they were getting a little advertisement from me. So we got a lot of phone calls from people from that app. And so my second customer, I think, was American Express. Third was ESPN. Fourth was Disney. And then off to the races.
So you started small.
It started small and went smaller.
That's fascinating, and thanks for sharing that. Let's go forward a little bit to sort of Matic and AI. Mm-hmm. I know you've said that AI you look at as almost identical to the app sort of phase.
Yeah, these tech disruptions have very, very common signatures in them. And whether you go all the way back to multimedia, which is when images and audio and video started showing up on our computer screens, sure, and we started like consuming that stuff back, and that was in the early 90s, to web, Web 1, which was late 90s, and Web 2, which is like e-commerce and doing business online, not just looking at static screens, but doing business and transactions. And then you go to mobile, and then you go to AI. Now, one of the tough things, and I would throw Bitcoin in there too. Well, I'm sorry, not Bitcoin. I would throw blockchain in there too. Blockchain just has like a black eye on it because of just kind of a lot of shenanigans around crypto.
Yes.
But that was a very powerful technology that's kind of like under a few other things. It didn't really get its like real heyday like mobile did and AI is doing, but primarily because of the crypto tie-in. Nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is.
Right.
But they have a common signature, and that's like at first, no one thinks they need it at all. Then there's a small group of companies and individuals first, companies second, that are willing to experiment with it because they're always looking for the next thing that they could leverage, and they have an open mind about experimentation. Then they start to identify a couple of use cases and business cases that would not have been possible but for the technology. And if that is strong enough, they do a major investment in it and they really lean into it. Then all of the lemmings usually kind of follow suit once, that first group has gone, and then you get this big wave. So it's like it's interesting. It's like this, the wave will kind of crest a little bit and you'll get those drips, and those are those experimenters. And then you'll get the big bang. And so when you get the big bang is usually after that is when a lot of companies will come in, and companies like Matic are popping up all the time now because the water's safe. We now know. And so they're coming in, they're trying to catch up. Fortunately, we've been in the business, long enough to have like a pretty damn good head start on these guys. But they all have that kind of same wave to it. And so what's important for me when I'm going out and I see something is how can I find those first few customers or companies or users of this technology to experiment with me and then prove the business case out. And then once I have a business case that's played out that I can hold up and say, look, we did this. That's when you then have the ability to go out and get the rest of the market.
When you speak about the rest of the market, I mean, obviously there's things...
Like when it goes mainstream.
Yes, exactly.
Like I would say AI right now is mainstream.
Yes.
Right. Even just 2 years ago, it was not mainstream.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't my little circle, but I'm a techie. It wasn't in everyone's circle. Right. Now it's in everyone's circle.
Right, it is. It even helps my grammar. I'll evidence to the contrary. But I think that one of the things that I'm interested in exploring a little further is sort of like of all the things that AI can work on and help, how do you decide, okay, these are the areas I want to focus in. This is the greatest need.
Yeah. You don't start with the technology. You start with that friction. So let's go back to that silly Dallas Stars example I gave earlier. The friction was real friction reported by the salespeople on those telephones to their sales manager. The sales manager's like, man, we got a problem. These people can't see through the phone. What are we going to do about that? Okay, well, what if I could help people see through the phone? Mm-hmm. Sure. Start with the pain. So, and that's like, well, let's take Chick-fil-A. What was their pain? Their pain was very simple. Their kitchen had more capacity than their cash registers would allow. The bottleneck in their revenue was the cash register. So how could I get orders into the kitchen, which was waiting on orders? What's another way to do that? What if everyone had their own cash register? So it's that way of thinking. Right. Like, what do you mean? What if everyone had their own? You mean, what if every customer could place their own order whenever they wanted to, pay for it and everything? Yeah, that. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, we're going to build this really amazing app that is really a complex thing, but we're going to make it really easy for anyone to run their own cash register, pay for their own meal, et cetera, customize their own sandwich, blah, 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 blah. And once we did that, that kitchen was at full capacity, and the revenue, there was no opportunity costs anymore. There was no abandoned cycles. It was fully yield managed, and you had the asset was running at full capacity. It's like running a 737. You never want them sitting.
Right.
You want to refuel and fly. So the idea was with Matic, we start with where is the pain, not what can the technology do, but where is the pain. And so again, same thing. And frankly, a lot of the vast majority, I would actually assert, and this is somewhat controversial and for me to say, but the vast majority of AI businesses that are focused on healthcare start with the technology. They will say things like, oh, wow, we could have the technology give medical advice. Oh, wow, we could have the technology do this. We could have the technology do that. I say, listen, put the technology aside. Let's go talk to doctors. Let's go talk to patients. Let's go talk to people that work inside of practices that do the insurance coding. Let's talk to the people that have to deal with the back and forth appeals process between the provider and the payer, the insurance company,
yes,
and the doctor who did the services. Let's go talk to those humans, because those humans will be able to tell us with absolute accuracy what they are experiencing, what they are doing, having it going on in their life every single day. We find those friction points, and then we back up and say, okay, here is a system. We basically plot a system. You call it a user journey. A lot of people call them user journeys.
Yes.
So let's take a user journey of a patient. And actually back at Bottle Rocket, we did this for Baylor Scott & White. We built all of Baylor Scott & White's patient apps, provider apps, things like that. This is back in like 2017, 2019. So the same kind of thing we're doing now is we sit with the patient. We go to the doctor with them. We see what it's like for them to get on the phone, reschedule something, go get their prescription, get prescription refilled. We see all the pain points. The great thing about healthcare is, though, we're all users of healthcare. Any human, and I'm a human, is a user of healthcare.
Sure.
So we already know, we already have our own ethnographic study.
Sure.
We've already anytime that I get a refill, I'm coming up with ideas about how to make this healthcare thing less frictionful. So, but then I'm not a doctor. Fortunately, the founder of Matic is a doctor. We can talk about that some more because he's amazing. And by sitting with that user, whether that's an insurance coder, whether that's a front desk person who checks you in and makes sure your insurance card's right and all that stuff, or the doctor themselves, or the patient, we are following them, shadowing them. We're learning what their life is like. We're plotting that friction, and then we identify how technology could turn something from a negative affect to a positive affect. I wish I had a screen here and I would show you one of these journeys, but you can imagine we plot it with positive to negative affect. So was it a good or bad experience? So I showed up at the doctor's office and I had to refill all those damn forms. And again, negative affect.
Right.
What if I could help create a world using technology that when you walked in, you didn't have to do that type of stuff? Or maybe it only asked you, maybe AI said, you know what, 99% of these questions just never change, but this one does change. So I have to ask you to tell me if there's any additional, I'm going to show you your list of medications versus make you fill it in. I'm going to show you your list of medications, and I'm going to let you tap on the ones that you're no longer taking or add the ones that you are taking. Just fill in the gaps,
right?
Things like that. If I'm a provider, and after I see you, let's say you're my patient, you think I'm done. No, I've got like 30 minutes of work to do because I saw you for 15 minutes. Because I've got to type up all your stuff. I've got to do all the initial insurance coding. I've got to do all these different things to make sure your chart is just right. Because if I don't, I'm not going to get reimbursed properly, nor have I given you good care.
Right.
So there's both a care and a financial consequence to that doctor not doing all that extra manual work. So we watched that manual work, and then we said, well, what if we could basically be writing the note while you're meeting the patient, so that when you're done with meeting the patient, the note's written and you could just proofread it? What if we looked at everything and we did the insurance coding for you, and then we asked you questions, clarifying questions? So again, we did 80 to 90% of the work, and we're going to ask you questions to make sure we can kind of fill in that last 10 or 20%, things like that. And so once we start doing that, now that doctor has so much more time. They can choose to spend it with you. They can choose to spend it on the golf course, or they can choose to take on more patients, increase their panel if they wanted to. And so that is a very, very, very big way that we saw that we could go into a system that's so full of friction. I mean, you can imagine if we like to get rid of friction,
yes,
this is a honeypot.
Yes.
I mean, this is just full of friction in every single area. Every single stakeholder has tons of friction. It's interesting. In many systems, there's certain stakeholders that are marginalized and they have all the friction. And the other ones don't have a lot of friction because it's been like optimized for them, but not for this one stakeholder. And we're going in trying to focus on this one stakeholder. In healthcare, every stakeholder is so pissed off with all this friction.
Sure.
The payers are pissed off. Everyone. There's not a good or a bad. There's just everyone's in the muck. And so we're going in there, we identify that friction, and then we identify how technology can help with that friction.
Well, it seems that there may be unlimited applications for the reduction of friction in terms of portability. So, in other words, if I'm a patient and I have to switch doctors because I move, or I'm having to have something done because I had an accident in another place, that has always, or at least to my knowledge, been a stumbling block for the electronic health record because of fears from HIPAA violation. Just how do you access that? How do you get that in real time to be assistive to that person? Has that been dealing with maybe the friction that comes from maybe legislation that has stopped people from trying this? Has that been something that you've...
So it's really interesting. So there was legislation in, I think it was 20, well, there's been legislation all along the way, but legislation about 10 years ago that really pushed hard. And the good side of that was it really did force any providers holding out, or any healthcare stakeholders holding out from going digital. It really did kind of push everyone into a digital world. But it didn't push them into maybe the best digital world in the world, just into a digital world. And so we're picking up from there and moving forward. So one of the big first moves, and you pointed it out, was that people would implement these EHRs, the electronic health records. And what that at least did is it put the information into a format that could be portable, because paper is not very portable. I mean, that's one of the reasons why probably healthcare is one of the only industries remaining that keeps the fax machine companies going. I mean, literally, they still have to have faxes. They have to because of some holdouts.
Right.
But at least the vast majority of information is in a digital form. Now it's about what are we going to be able to do with that? So a lot of people in the past, before AI, were talking about, well, how can I move this digital information around? With AI, it's more about how can I use that digital information? Because technology is only interesting when you apply it. So yeah, you could use a technology to scan the piece of paper, but it's still a piece of paper. It's just in the digital world. And so it can be moved around at the speed of light. But it's still a document that you have to read and then take action on. What AI, one of the many things that AI is very good at, is taking an enormous amount of unstructured data and finding structure within it, and then allowing humans to either make structured decisions or take structured actions based on all this unstructured data. An example of that, which we can talk about, how Matic does its products and everything, but I'll just really quick. We have these different Matics, which are essentially agents. We have one called SumMatic. It's Summary Matic. And what it does, it's like a superpower of being able to do that huge troves of unstructured data. An example would be all of your medical records since the day you were born, or an entire population's medical records, all of an employer's medical records, things like that. And then not move it around or store it or show it to you, but to find insights and bring those to your attention. So, for example, one of the most common use cases of somatic with our customers is a doctor now doesn't have to spend what usually is hours, or at least an hour in the morning over coffee, looking at his or her day, preparing for the day, reloading in their brain this guy named Calvin Carter they haven't seen in 6 months, or maybe have never seen. Maybe they're a new doctor. The AI is going to go in, access all that information, not move it around, read it where it is. Now it's read it once. It never needs to read it again, just needs to read the new stuff. And it's going to then say to the doctor, okay, so here's some trends in Calvin's health. Here's some trends that you should really be looking for. I've noticed over the last 15 years, maybe his weight's been going up, or maybe his blood pressure's been going up. And it's one of the, like, the frog that boils in the water kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's each time you went, he came to see you, wasn't that big of a jump, but taken in totality over the last 15 years, it's a big damn jump, and maybe we should be talking about this. So those sorts of things will be bubbled up for the doctor. The other thing is, well, he's presenting today X, whatever's coming in for. Interestingly, he's actually identified, this has come up three or four times in the past. There actually might be something there because AI has access to, the compendium of knowledge of humanity around the human body. It is able to then come in and say, hey, I'm not going to diagnose here, doc, but here are 7 or 2 or 1 things that you need to look at because it could be one of these. So it's really helping that doctor be a better doctor. It's not doing that job for that doctor. It's giving that doctor more tools, just like a stethoscope is a tool, just like a knife or a scope or whatever is a tool. But this is another tool.
But it sounds like...
and it gets all that stuff through the EHRs.
Well, and the incredible jump that you and Matic have made is that it is not like you're running this stuff through AI. It is like AI is immersed in it.
Yes,
so it's like
that's the best way to do AI. Yeah, you can take AI, leave it over there in a box, and throw it things, and it throws things back to you. You could do that. That's no problem. But when you, and this is the agentification of AI, when you take that AI in the form of an agent and you invite that agent into your workflow, your business workflow, and you give it rules and you give it goals, it will then start to do those things. So you don't have to every time say, I've got this information and hey, AI, I want you to look for these particular trends. That's not a very effective use of AI. You can use AI that way, and that's how most people use AI. They'll write a prompt, and they'll put it into ChatGPT, maybe upload some files, give ChatGPT very specific, finite, which actually puts handcuffs on the AI. Yeah, I can do more than you asked it to do, but it's trying to, do what you asked it to do. When you do the opposite and you build something that's a smarter system, you put it into, that's what we call Matic Inside. You put it inside the business, inside those workflows, and you give it information, access to information, and then you essentially are saying, hey, can you help me with the prep here? Can you do this? Can you do that? Like, sure. Anything else you see? Yeah, actually, I see 3 or 4 other things. Great. What do you think I should do with that? Well, I think you should look at this, this, and this, and this. Remember, AI is not doing anything other than finding the best possible human-generated answer because it's coming from human-generated content, at least now. Mm-hmm. It's coming from human-generated content. So if you had someone sitting next to you that has read every single thing every human has ever written, but in aggregate, it's able to make, the right best decisions, why wouldn't you start saying, hey, what else can you do?
Sure.
Would you really use that as just your slave and give it finite, specific directions? Or would you say, hey, you're kind of like a partner of mine. So what else do you think I should be doing here? And so that's the level of AI tools that we build. They become the partner with the patient, the partner with the insurance coder, the partner with the doctor, the partner with every other stakeholder in the healthcare industry.
Well, let's talk just a little bit about, you're talking about partners. Let's get a little bit into people. How important in Matic and in the work that you do are the people, the right person in the right seat to do the right thing at the right time?
In the use of the AI or in the building of the AI?
In the building of Matic and in applying the AI to the greatest number of people in the greatest use it can be.
Yeah. So first off, remember how we start with the friction?
Yes.
That's all reported by the human. So we don't start with tech. We start with humans. So, but for the fact, we have nothing to do. But for the fact that we sit down with humans working in traditional systems and we listen to what their pain is. So you have to have that component of it. Then there's the component, of course, the people that are building those systems.
Yes.
When we hire and we recruit, we're looking for a lot of empathy. We test for empathy. We test for the kind of person who have a maker mentality, whether an engineer or a designer or project manager, et cetera. They have a maker mentality, but they aren't making for the sake of making. They're making for the sense of serving a human. And there's some people out there that really index highly on empathy. They want to serve. They want to make other people's lives better. And that's the kind of people that you want on your team. You don't necessarily want like the hot shot, I'll pick on engineering for a second. You don't necessarily want the hot shot coder who says, look what I can do. You really want the coder who says like, why are we building this? We're building this because I'll use a real example. This hospice nurse who goes to family after family, house after house, spends 8 hours in their car or the patient's home, goes home and spends 2.5 hours while their kids are saying, can you come play with me, Daddy? No, I got to close this chart, sweetie. By the time they're done, the kid's in a bed. I go, that's who we're here to serve. Okay, I got it. So when we create family time with that person, as a real person, his name's Todd, one of the people that we shadowed. When we create family time with Todd, we succeeded. So everything we do, we put in the language of humanity. Yes, we're building extremely complex technical systems, but they exist only to serve the needs of the humans, the real personal needs.
Sure. So let me ask you maybe just an overarching question. What are the things that make you nervous? What do you lose sleep over?
I'm assuming the question is about AI.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So if you haven't seen this movie, I just saw this 2 days ago. You'll probably want to cut this out later. There's a movie out now. It is absolutely crazy it's unhinged, but it's so good too. It's called, I think it's called Have Fun. Good luck, have fun, don't die. And it basically talks about this like dystopic future of the combination of the hypnotic and addictive characteristics of social media and infinite scroll,
yes,
which we know has a serious chemical impact inside the brain that's just real, with a super intelligence that wants to harness that to essentially enslaved humanity for its own good. It's like the general dystopic, trend,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I think a lot of major advancements that we've made as humans have always come with good and bad. And the ones that stick, the good outweighs the bad. But all the way from modern medicine to the internal combustion engine, the use of fossil fuels, these all come with good things and they all come with bad things. And every time there's a new one on scene, it's really easy to run news cycles on the bad parts because fear, uncertainty, and doubt, we humans we just love it. We love, to wallow in our fears, uncertainties, and doubts. I mean, that's why the Lifetime channel exists.
Right, exactly.
All these, murders and all these, right. It's like we love that. So I think that the vast majority of people we'll hear a news cycle about, the singularity and the loss of human control, things like that. I'm not suggesting that that's not possible. When you look at a convergence of things such as social media and AI and quantum computing, the ingredients are there to do both good and bad. Just like with nuclear energy, fission and fusion, the ingredients are there to do both good and bad. I can make a ton of energy and not much waste, or not as bad a waste because I can contain it better. But I can also build you a bomb and blow you up. AI is going to be just one more thing where it's going to bring an enormous amount of good. If AI cures cancer or some cancers because it's able to see and process more data than any one computer has been able to in the past, or any one human team has been able to in the past, it'd be hard to say that didn't provide a lot of good. It can also provide a lot of good in lots of ways, like get Todd time with his kids.
Right.
So there's all sorts of things that will come that would be extremely good from AI. But I guarantee you there's going to be some dirty bombs, so to speak.
Sure.
There's going to be nations using AI already. I mean, our own nation uses AI fabricated things that are posted on the president's X feed. I mean, yeah, there's misuse of AI lots of places. Is it taken to the point that it could bring down our economy? The best, I guess, like the most, in my personal opinion, the most believable, darkest moment would be when unemployment spikes to the point of forcing a depression. That is what a lot of people are saying, hey, just practically, let's not think about, robots controlling us. By the way, robots was the other convergence. There's also, robots are real now.
Yes.
So you've got, AI, robots, social media, and you've got, potentially quantum computing, which is a ways off, but still, it's real. But when you have those, those things, could there be enough unemployment that it just is too much too fast? There's too much automation and too much efficiency and too many advancements at one time. Over time, it'll absorb, but usually it's how much happens too fast.
Right.
Now, that is a real thing. And that's hard to even for someone like me who looks into the future to know, because I've never seen something evolve so fast. It's like Moore's law multiplied by Moore's law, to the power of Moore's law. It's such an exponential increase. And even on our own business, what my products can do today, they couldn't do 2.5 months ago, not 2.5 years ago. Why? Because we're unlocking more stuff all the time. How are we unlocking stuff so fast? Because we're using AI to unlock power inside of AI. And the large language models, Gemini and Anthropic and, Claude and Chat, OpenAI, et cetera, those are also raising all of the boats. And so you have companies and innovators like Matic that are doing their work, and you've got the baseline of technology of AI is growing at such a rapid pace. The ChatGPT of this year is, I don't know how many fold more powerful than the one just X number of months ago, and certainly Y number of years ago.
Sure. 50 years from now, when you've decided that you're done working, and
you're going to ask if I'm going to cut my head off and freeze it? And
no, I'm not going to ask that. That's it for a different time. That's for your own movie, dystopian future. But if I'm asked to make remarks about you as you're being inducted into the Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame, what would those remarks entail?
I'm a big believer in, it's not just what you accomplished, it's how you behaved when you accomplish those things. If you're the kind of person that doesn't mind drowning puppies, that's not how I get success. It's I'm a really big believer in taking the hard route and doing things the right way. That starts with the people. I've always had a culture first approach. I've always said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I firmly believe if tomorrow, if AI was outlawed and Matic could not do AI anymore, Matic, the company, would survive because the people in it would be like, right, well then what's the other technology we can use to deal with this friction? It really is, at the end of the day, all about the people you surround yourself with. And I mentioned earlier in the interview the power of polarity. So I don't believe you should walk the middle line. I really do think you should throw down some opinions and some belief systems. And I remember when at Bottle Rocket, I needed to hire people, and I put on my webpage, in the career section of my webpage, and I was trying to find engineers. I said, we hate Windows, we love Macintosh. We hate pointy fingers, we love dirty fingernails. And so basically we just laid it out there. We don't believe in bullies. We have a no assholes rule, these sorts of things. And if this turns you off, that's okay. I'm not trying to get every engineer in the world to apply. I'm trying to get the right one engineer that looks at this polarized belief system that I've laid out there and says, how refreshing is that? I have to go work there. I'll do anything to get in that place. So by doing that, I build organizations that are highly polarized. We are truly empathetic. It is a no BS thing when I say we're here to serve the user. We're not here to learn technology. We're here to serve the user and make that user's life better. That kind of thing. And with stakeholder theory, if you believe in stakeholder theory, which I do, you have to look at all your stakeholders. Let's take an example. Let's just take Matic. Well, our stakeholders would be our customers, the people who use our products. They would be, my employees as well. And when you repeatedly prioritize one stakeholder over another, you are creating have and have-nots. If every single time a customer of mine wanted something by 6 a.m. in the morning and a Matic employee, we call ourselves Matician,
yes,
had to work all night to get it done, if I did that every single time a client asked me to do that, people would quit, and they should quit. So it's really about how did we behave? How did we treat the people, not just the customers, the employees, not just the customers, the users of their software, our suppliers, our vendors, our investors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How you treat people is really what defines who you are, not what you achieve, but how you treated them along the way of achieving those things. I'm a big believer in you will get to your achievements, but I'm only willing to get there through a pathway that I can look myself in the mirror every day. So that would be hopefully what I would be remembered for is, hey, it's not about what this guy and his team achieved, because it's not me. It's all of us. It's not what they achieved. It's how they behaved and how they treated each other and the world around them while also achieving those things. That's what I hope is remembered more than the achievement itself.
Sure, and I don't doubt that it will. So you started off at Matic as a medical scribe, and it rapidly evolved into something different. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Yes, you're right. The first thing that was built by the founder, Alex Shepard, was a medical scribe. And actually, he built it when he was in medical school. And they make you scribe. They make you follow doctors and write down everything that's said and write these very complex medical notes. And Alex looks at that and said, this is error-prone, this is inefficient, this is just not the right way to do it, tons of friction. And so he wrote one of the world's first and absolute best medical scribe that would listen to everything said in the room, and it would write the note for you. But that itself is just a point solution. That fixes just one tiny piece of the friction of this huge user journey full of friction that we described earlier. But it was a very powerful one. And the reason I got super excited about this space was when I realized that if we could have an immutable record of truth of what happened between doctor and patient, we could actually prevent a lot of the friction downstream. I'll give you an example. If the note is not absolutely comprehensive, uses the right words in the right formatting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it is much more likely to not be coded properly, which means revenue's left on the table or revenue is improperly being asked for. It is not turned into a very good claim, and it creates a lot of appeals. And so what could have been fixed right there in the room caused a knock-on effect of so much inefficiency, so much waste, and a lot of unfairness in the system. But we couldn't just stop there. We had to, like swinging from vine to vine in a jungle, we had to connect all of these things. And so that's why we then said, okay, well, then we need an insurance coding system that's going to also be able to work with the system that's in the room listening. Okay, we'll make code Matic. Okay, now we need something that's going to be able to, summarize the entire patient's history so that that patient encounter can be even better, because patient history is also part of what should be reported into a medical note. It also affects coding, et cetera, et cetera. So what we ended up building was this army of extremely powerful, hyper-specialized agents. We call them Matics. But then the magic came when we had them talking to one another, and we would create an orchestration layer where they would basically, as a partner to the provider or to the patient, depending what the use case is, that they would be following the entire workflow. And so that's why we went from a single, very good point solution to now a comprehensive care to collection lifecycle, intelligent, orchestrated workflow. That is when we really started to hit our stride, and we very, very much so distinguished ourselves from our competition. Our competition is still mainly in the mode of creating multiple point solutions. We already did that. We had the one, then we had two, then we've already gone past that. Now our solutions are talking to one another, and now there's an orchestration layer on top of it, customized to the use case. So orchestration layer for the patient and what they care about, orchestration layer for the provider and what they care about, orchestration layer for the back office and what they care about. So that is really why we went from this one thing to the next thing. And I remember, it's kind of funny, it was this summer, and I said, there's just no way that if I close my eyes and open them 2 years from now, these point solutions will still be around. These companies that are just really one product, they won't be around. That product will be a feature and someone else's product,
right?
A bigger, more strategic product. So I said, that's where the puck's going. Let's just skate there. Let's just start. And it's kind of ironic, but within like a month of making that maybe a couple months of making that internal decision, completely pivoting the organization, the product roadmap, et cetera, and moving in this new orchestrated intelligence direction, the big guys, Epic, Cerner, et cetera, came out saying, we have to have AI in every part of our workflow solution. It can't just be an ambient scribe that does this or a AI summarizer that does that. It has to be inside. And we had already coined the Matic inside, and so it was kind of nice to be part of where that puck was going. And we were validated immediately by the 800-pound gorillas in the room that is where that AI in healthcare should go and will go and has gone. And that is why when we sit down, we are talking about an orchestrated intelligence, not AI solutions. What are your business problems? What are you trying to overcome? What's that friction? And how can we lay out an orchestrated intelligence layer that gets you there? That's also why we don't usually just sell off-the-shelf products that you just plug in and go with, because we've learned that while we might be able to have 80% of what you need done right now in the back office waiting to be installed, that last 20%, that's how we really get the return on your investment as an organization. So whether you're an EHR who has a great workflow system, but it needs to be AI-ified, we have a program for EHRs where they can come to us and we can basically take our Matics and plug them into their orchestrated workflows. So now their workflows are smart workflows, not just manual workflows. Or if you're a practice, like you got hundreds of doctors and whatnot, and you have a workflow that you need to make smarter, make better, make more efficient. You want to increase the number of patients you see in your panel. You want to decrease liability and increase care. You want to decrease claims denials and reduce the appeals process and the cost of the appeals process. Those are all points of friction within the workflow. We take our Matics, we go inside your workflow, and we make that workflow smarter, better, faster, all those different things. So that orchestration is really where the strategy is. It's not really the AI technology. It's really the applied use of that through the lens of the friction reported by the human users.
That's fantastic. I mean, it starts at the beginning and goes to the end, and it creates efficiencies all the way along.
Exactly. And when you prevent an error from ever happening, you don't have the cost of the error or the cost of correcting the error. So just by getting further up the river, further up the upstream of the problems, and putting things into motion the right way, when you have the opportunity to do so, immediately, even if you don't do anything else, everything else is better. Then if you also attach all these other things, you raise it even higher and higher and higher. And that's why it's dramatically transformational. When Alex started this business, he said, I'm convinced that healthcare will be one of the most disrupted and transformed things in the world because of AI. Lots of other industries too, right?
Sure.
But healthcare was just like the honeypot for this. And that excited him because who wouldn't want to make good that could impact all of your brothers and sisters?
Sure, absolutely.
And so that's the passion that drove him. And it's true. I mean, we've got the evidence. It's true.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give a group of business owners who are at different stages of their...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd say I've got my own, things that, kind of resonate with me. Passion, polarity, and persistence. I guess they're the 3 Ps. So with passion is I've always done well when I'm doing something I love. It sounds cliche, man, but it's just true. Because if you're playing the game for because of love of the game versus a particular outcome, you'll play the game every day, even when the game's hard, even when you're losing the game, you'll keep going back to play that game because you love the game. So that's the passion side. The persistence is driven by the passion, and if you really love something, you don't give up on it, right? I mean, no matter how tough things get, you just kind of keep wanting to do it for whatever reason. So persistence is the ultimate competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. If you can just outlast the other guy, you're gonna win. And Simon Sinek has some good content around infinite game theory, infinite games versus finite games. Finite game is chess, set of rules, winner, loser. The purpose of the game is to win the game. But business is not finite. Business was here before you were born, or will be here after you're gone. The rules of business can change. The players can change. The players can come and go. There's no winning because it's just a continuum of time. And so really the goal is to just stay in the game, to persist, to survive. So persistence is another big one. Again, if you stay in the game, you will, by default, you will succeed. And then the third one, polarity, and I talked about that earlier, which is you got to stand for something. You got to say, no, this is what I believe in. And I respect that you have other alternative beliefs. I'm not going to marginalize you for not agreeing with me. I love you. I love the fact that you're different. But this is what I believe in. When you're willing to take a stand for something, when you're willing to take a punch for something, when you're willing to be ridiculed for something, I mean, that is powerful. That means you're really committed to it. So if you're passionate about something and you're never going to give up, and you're willing to take a punch for it, those are the 3 ingredients to success. It might not be an overnight success, and but it is. It just is. That those are the things that have always delivered me to where I want to go eventually.
Well, thank you, Calvin, for being part of Decision Points and for your excellent time this morning.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.